everyone, Pathetic Ivy here. I like video games. I'm hoping this comes as a shock to nobody who watches this channel. Video games have been just such a massive part of my life for as long as I can remember. I truly love this medium as it has created so many masterful pieces of art. So, naturally, I've kept up with and played most major releases this year, and through doing this, I made an observation. That observation being just how incredible the games that released this year have been. So that's what I want this video to be about. A celebration of all the incredible releases this year. And since this is a horror-focused channel, a major part of this video will be on indie horror, but there will also be, in the second half, a focus on major AAA releases as well, which I am equally as passionate about. Without further ado, let's start with arguably the best surprise of this year, the Silent Hill 2 remake being genuinely good. I adore the original Silent Hill 2 so much. I have a full video on it if you're interested. I really think that this is one of, if not the greatest horror experiences ever. I honestly believed, and to an extent still believe, that this game never needed a remake. It was perfect as it was. But then, when the game was originally announced, let's just say my opinions didn't change. The remake looked just straight up awful, and that was what my opinion was of what the game was going to be like all the way up until the release. The truth couldn't be any more different. The Silent Hill 2 remake is an incredible video game that is perfectly faithful to the original vision of Silent Hill 2 while expanding it in all the right ways. The new cast, which I was originally skeptical of, all delivered their roles almost flawlessly. To give an example, the new voice actor for James Sunderland, Luke Roberts, will never be able to match the complete rawness and perfection of Guy Seehee, but he does come damn near close. Although I still personally prefer tank controls, the new fighting mechanics are frantic and raw and feel amazing. Even if I still personally prefer the original, the Silent Hill 2 remake is still the incredible game about loss, guilt, trauma, and torment that the original became iconic for. Next up is Shipwreck 64. Do you guys know just how much I goddamn love Shipwreck 64? This is one of the best horror games ever made. Shipwreck 64 is a horror platformer game that is essentially a playable creepypasta, and I mean that in the best way possible. In the game universe, Shipwreck 64 was a game originally released for the Nintendo 64 in 1997, but was mysteriously pulled from store shelves just a few days later. It has now resurfaced, and is now available for the public to play. The game has just such an incredible approach to horror. As you dig deeper into the game, you find out more about the dark history of both this game and Broadside as a company. It just gives off this feeling of being somewhere or finding something that you shouldn't see. This game, frankly, just doesn't pull any punches. It is not afraid to show you some of the darker parts of this game, and that is something sorely missing from the mascot horror scene. The puzzles also incorporate ARG elements, which are a delight to solve. I truly love this game, and can't wait to see what its follow-up game, HI-09, has in store. Now, for a game that released a lot later in the year than the others on this list. Finding Frankie is another great indie horror game. I don't adore it as much as a lot of other people do, but it is an incredibly solid game and is such a standout amongst the games that fall in line with the typical mascot horror format. The parkour mechanics are incredibly fun and make the chases so much more thrilling as you have to dodge obstacles in real time and go at a lightning pace. The atmosphere is also really done well, as it juxtaposes the bright, colourful game show vibe with the eerie and violent horror parts. The story is also really cool and so much more interesting than most mascot horror games. Overall, just an incredibly solid game. Before we move on to my favourite horror game this year, I just wanted to do some honourable mentions for games that for one reason or another I couldn't write enough about to fill a section of the video. Poppy Chapter 3 is an incredible horror game that single-handedly made me a fan of Poppy Playtime. From what I've heard, Crow Country is a phenomenal survival horror experience. Garten of Banban got a major improvement this year in the form of Banban 7. Still not a good game, but I wholeheartedly enjoyed it, and it was a major step up from the rest of the series. Then finally, Doors Floor 2 was just simply really fun. Now, for my favourite horror game this entire year, coming as a surprise to nobody, is Indigo Park. I have made an entire video on why I love this game so much, but to summarise, Indigo Park is such a major part of this channel, and therefore my online presence as Pathetic Ivy. There was a very long time where people online simply knew me as that Indigo Park guy. So to see the game be just as incredible as it was made me so happy. The game is charming, its approach to horror is great, and the story has me completely invested. I cannot wait to see what Chapter 2 has in store for us. Shifting a bit to a game that I also really love, and some of you will be familiar with, let's talk about Sonic X Shadow Generations. I, once again, have already made a video about this game, but while that was very much focused on the Shadow portion, today I want to talk about both aspects of the game. The Sonic Generations remaster portion of this game is an incredible remaster for an incredible game, and makes this game look absolutely beautiful. Sonic Generations is still one of the best Sonic games ever made. Now, for Shadow Generations. This is my favourite Sonic game, hands down. It is just such a well-crafted game with fun mechanics, level design that puts exploration and replayability at the forefront, and boss fights that are just such delights to play through. Putting that on top of a beautiful story about Shadow learning to embrace his past and his grief for Maria while still being able to move on and live his life makes this one of the best video games just simply ever. Now to talk about a game that absolutely none of you expected me to talk about here on this channel. I frickin' love Helldivers 2. For those who don't know, Helldivers 2 is a third-person multiplayer co-op shooter where you and up to 4 friends... Wait, no, that's not right. It's meant to be 3 friends. Hold on. I need to change that in the script. Do I keep this take in? Helldivers 2 is a third-person multiplayer co-op shooter where you and up to 3 friends delve into other planets and fight the enemies of Super Earth and manage democracy. Now, I know that sounded a bit of like an ad reading, but this game is simply just as good as it was advertised. I have been playing loads of it with friends, and it has become one of my favourite multiplayer games ever. The game is just simply fun. There are so many other options in how to go about a situation thanks to this game's stratagem mechanic. And thanks to the constant support from the developers, there is no one best way to go about a situation. You truly can play this game however you wish, and the game won't penalise you for it. The mass multiplayer features are simply awesome as well. Having to work together with players across the world, and every campaign you finish affects the status of the planet you are fighting on, which in turn affects every single other person playing Helldivers. The game really does make you feel like a soldier in one great war. Now, for another pleasant surprise this year, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered. For a bit of context, Horizon Zero Dawn is my favourite game ever made, hands down. Borderline nothing will change the fact that I love this game more than any other. Despite my love for the original, I was still really confused by the announcement of a remaster. The game still looked absolutely gorgeous and was already given a 60 FPS upgrade, so did a 7-year-old game really need a remaster? Is what I thought to myself. And then my friend ended up playing the game for the first time through the remaster, and since I love Horizon, decided to sit down and watch them play a bit of it, and what I saw completely changed my opinion. It is honestly impressive just how much of a graphical overhaul this game was given. It somehow looks even greater than before. In my opinion, this game completely warranted the remaster, and still continues to be my favourite game of all time. Here we are, the final portion of the video, save the best for last. My absolute game of the year. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The world of Final Fantasy VII is one I hold very close to my heart, and this game is one of those reasons why. FF7 Rebirth is one of the greatest RPGs ever made. It has such an expansive world to explore with so much to do and see. The cast of characters is such a well-written bunch. Cloud Strife, Sephiroth, Tifa Lockhart, Aerith Gainsborough, and everyone else are just such iconic characters for a reason, and this game continues that legacy. Speaking of Aerith, I suppose we should talk about the ending. Major spoilers incoming. The ending of this game is incredible. Obviously, people knew Aerith was supposed to die in this game. It's an iconic piece of gaming, after all. But what the game did, and has been doing, was slowly breaking from the intended timeline of the original Final Fantasy VII. The idea that we could save Aerith was a very real one. But we don't. Aerith does die. We couldn't help her in time, but that's okay. Her death was never for nothing, and deep down, she will be with us the rest of the journey. And this is just one example of just how good the story in this game is. It uses the fact it is a remake to tell both a faithful and fresh story to old and new fans. The story is simply beautifully written. The combat mechanics are incredible as well, being a masterful mix of real-time and turn-based combat that requires both long-term strategy and on-the-fly decision-making. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is truly a masterpiece and is my game of the year. And that's all I have to say for this video. Thank you everyone for watching and listening to me go on about games I really like. 2024 really has been a great year for gaming, with so many standout releases, and games that have very quickly become games that I hold very close to my heart. Here's to 2025 being another incredible year for gaming, and on that note, I've been Pathetic Ivy, and I bid you farewell.